If you've watched some of my recent YouTube shorts, you already know what I'm talking about here. I have to review subwoofers outdoors for a couple different reasons, but one of them is because I need a wide open space to do multi-level output testing in order to give you data that isn't influenced by a room. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, how is that different than your regular speaker testing, and why can't you do that in your garage like you do with your clip-on near-field scanner? A couple reasons, but honestly, one is just that when you take it outdoors, it's just quicker. Like, I can bang out a review probably in about 2 hours, as long as the conditions are right. The problem is having to wait that long. Now, what I didn't expect was I didn't expect some, let's just say, lady to come unhinged because I was testing a subwoofer in the middle of a park, in the middle of a practice football field with huge space all around. We're talking acres and acres. So I had to cut my testing short, and then I finished up at my house, and that was kind of fun. Anyway, so let's talk about the JTR Kallos 12 subwoofer. This was loaned to me by the manufacturer, and I'm going to read off some specs from their website. Frequency response is specified between 22 to 800 hertz, and that is plus or minus 3 decibels. They note, however, that this is outdoors and that you may get sub 10 hertz performance in room. The amplifier is a 2000 watt RMS Class D amplifier with DSP optimization. Dimensions are approximately 18.75 inches tall, 18.75 inches wide, and 12.75 inches deep. Approximate weight is 100 pounds. Now, if you've watched this channel for any period of time, really, if you've just watched one review, you know that I don't rely solely on subjective input. Like, I don't say, I set the speaker up in my room and this is the thing that I heard, because as everybody knows, different rooms is going to change the different response that you hear, especially with subwoofers and the mid-bass region. Typically below like 400 or 500 hertz, the response is going to change wildly from room to room. And that, again, is why I take the subwoofer outdoors and provide you with anechoic response. This gives us an idea of what the speaker is going to do before you even put it into a room. And it's a great way to baseline compare against other subwoofers, which I will do a little bit in this review. The funny part is, when I was doing this testing, I was sweeping the response from 10 hertz to 500 hertz. And yeah, that's pretty loud when you get to about 110 decibels at about a meter away. 500 hertz is pretty darn loud. So when I brought the subwoofer back to my house after being threatened to have the cops called on me, I did my limiting testing for about 10 hertz to 200 hertz. That way it wouldn't piss off my neighbors that were in the area. Lord knows I didn't want that woman coming back trying to find me from 3 or 4 blocks away. So with that said, what I'm showing you here is the frequency response at different output levels. As I start off with 0.005 volt RMS input via XLR with the amplifier set to max gain, I got this red response down here. So approximately, let's say about 74 decibels at 40 hertz. And you can see the response of this speaker has about 2 decibels from 40 hertz to about 70 hertz or so. So there's a little bit of a bump as I increase the voltage input, which is kind of the same thing as just turning the volume knob up on your receiver. I increase the output as well. So I go to 0.01 volts, and then I get this blue line and blah, 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 blah. Like, I keep going up in volume until I max out the maximum capability of the subwoofer. So I would say that if you have an AVR that's capable of providing 1 volt RMS output, you're going to be more than capable of driving this subwoofer to its maximum output level. And as you can see here, you're about 110 decibels at about 40 hertz. And then if you go down here and look at the lower frequency response region, you're at about 99 decibels or so at 20 hertz. And then if you go in the higher region of frequency, you're about 104, 103 decibels at 100 hertz. So this subwoofer has plenty of output, but it does start to roll off at around 32 hertz or so. Now let's dive into this just a little bit deeper, okay? As you increase the voltage, you expect to get an equivalent SPL increase. So in this case, what I'm showing you here is if I go from 0.05 volt RMS input, then I have 93.7 decibels at 40 hertz. If I then increase to 0.5 volt RMS input, I have 109.2 decibels at 40 hertz. If you do the math, what you really should wind up with from the voltage gain is about 20 decibels. Instead, you wind up with about 15.5 decibels, and your max SPL is about 110 decibels. All this really tells us is that there is a limiter in effect and that will reduce the output in order to protect the subwoofer. This is very common. In fact, it's very, very rare that I see a subwoofer that doesn't have a limiter, especially when you're talking from a manufacturer. Now, if you DIY your own subwoofer and buy a plate amp and throw it on there, then yeah, you may not have a limiter on there, but pretty much every production model subwoofer is going to have some sort of limiter. Otherwise, you keep turning the thing up, you're going to fry that subwoofer. And then the real story here is, again, 110 decibels is going to be your max output for this subwoofer. And this is not including distortion or anything. This is just in terms of frequency response. Now, of course, when you put this subwoofer into a room, the room gain is going to boost that subwoofer output more at some frequencies, but the room modes are also going to cause you some filters in the frequency response, so basically just big notches. So this kind of gives you a good idea of a baseline for comparison if you ever wanted to do that kind of comparison in the future. Now, if we take the normalized response and we just say, if I turn the volume up from, in this case, 94 decibels to 110 decibels, does that curve still have the same output? Well, not quite. You can see there's about 2 to 4 decibels difference between the 94 to 110 decibels in this frequency response. So what does this really mean? Okay, so the last example that I gave you, which was this example, means that, hey, dude, I'm turning the volume up. No matter what I do, it's going to cap out at 110 decibels at 40 hertz, and that's what you're going to get. But you also want to know, how does the response change as you go from one volume to another? In this case, I chose 94 decibels, increased to 110 decibels. The response does change. Ideally, you have just a linear response. You just turn the volume up and you run into the limiter, but it doesn't change the response profile at all. In this case, what you wind up with is some deviation of the response profile. And again, this is kind of par for the course. Now, if I look at this standard EQ mode, which is basically just the frequency response of the subwoofer, compared to the two EQ modes that you have available, which are cut and boost, this is what you get. So standard is in black, and then the EQ cut mode is in blue, and the boost mode is in red. Now we move on to the portion of the review that I think most people care about, the CEA 2010A testing. Now, if you're not familiar with that testing, I have all sorts of videos on that from like 5-6 years ago, if you want to go back and watch it. But basically what that does is you use a specific tone, you play that tone, and you increase the volume until you hit some distortion threshold that is defined by the CEA 2010A spec. When I give you the results on this following page, I want you to know that I'm comparing them against all of these subwoofers. And of note is a gentleman that goes by the screen name Sweet Chaos, and I don't know that he's on the forums anymore, but he took no telling how long to compile everybody's different testing over the years, from Audioholics to Brent Butterworth, myself, and just like so many more, into one spreadsheet. I used that spreadsheet, and then I filtered down on 12-inch sealed subwoofers that just have one 12-inch subwoofer, not multiple subwoofers in it. And then I did a comparison. And these are all the subwoofers that you're about to see compared to the JTR. And then if I show you the results, this is all the results, okay? Now, left side is the SPL. That's going to be the maximum output that the subwoofer passed for the CEA 2010A testing. And then frequency is down here on the X-axis. Now, all these little strains of spaghetti noodles and stuff, those are different points that different subwoofers are tested at. I wanted to note that the JTR is in red. Now, if I go here, I'm pointing it out. Hey, JTR is in red. It's got the highest SPL of all the subwoofers in this list right here, which means that to date, below about, let's say 45 hertz or so, the JTR has the highest low distortion output capability per the CEA 2010A test. Now, if you go above about 45 hertz or so, the JL Audio E112 is the closest competition, and it actually has higher SPL capability. Which one is going to be better for you? Look, it's a grab bag, right? If you're wanting a subwoofer for low frequency extension, then if we go here and look at like 25 hertz or so, it looks to me like you're 2 to 3 decibels higher with the JTR. So the JTR is going to be your best bet. The data looks good. Everything lines up in terms of output capability and overall performance. It looks like it's probably one of the best ones out there. Certainly below about 45 hertz or so, it's beating the rest of the competition. Now, if you want to go buy a 12-inch ported subwoofer, you can get lower and louder, but it's going to be a lot larger. So that's the other factor to consider here. How does it sound? All right. So this one is straightforward as heck. I set it up in my room. I use DSP from a WIM Ultra, and then I ran that into this guy right here. And with the WIM Ultra, I used some room correction, not their room correction, but my own equalization using a mini DSP microphone and REW software to find the areas to target. So I had a couple modal issues. I brought those down, and then I kind of smoothed out the response. I didn't boost any cuts, right? Or I didn't boost any dips in the response, because doing that, typically you're just throwing power at a sinkhole. It's not going to do anything for you. But bring those boosts down. You can even do that with a phone, honestly. You can use your phone to measure bass response in a room. And anybody who tells you different, tell them to come see me. I've been doing this for so long. You don't have to have a special microphone to measure bass response in your room, unless you're talking below like 20 hertz. All right, maybe even 30 hertz. But for room mode issues, microphone on your phone is adequate to get an idea. Then you go into your EQ and you just bring them down. All right. So after I did all of that, yeah, plenty happy with the subwoofer. No real issues aligning it to the mains, but I did cut this subwoofer at about 50 hertz. So I let my mains run down to around 60. And then I played around with some of the REW software to try to help phase align the mains to the subwoofer. And that took a little bit of effort. I mean, that's really where the time sink is to properly get a subwoofer introduced into your system. It's not as simple as just putting the subwoofer in your room and calling it a day. You can do that, but if you really want to get everything just nice and in sync, bye, then I do highly suggest you buy a microphone to do that properly with REW, because then you're going to need phase response, and phone mics just aren't going to be any good for that. Okay, so I appreciate you time. I appreciate you time, tea time, bedtime. Bedtime's coming soon. No, seriously, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know in the comment section below. Been a hot minute since I've done a subwoofer review, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of what you can go on and its technical merits and its chops compared to other subwoofers that are out there. If you'd like to support what I'm doing, you can do so one of two main ways. One, you can join me at patreon.com/Aaron's Audio Corner. And basically, it's like a membership thing. You sign up, you kick me over a few bucks a month. You get access to data early. You get to ask me questions. You get involved in polls. And I do giveaways at different price levels too. So that's one cool way that you can help me out. Another way that you can help me out without spending a single dime is to just use any of my generic affiliate links in the description section below. Click any of these links to go to any of these stores, from Amazon to Audio Advice to Crutchfield, Target, Walmart, etc. Buy anything you want from any of those stores, and I will get a commission at no additional cost to you. And it ranges depending on which website you use. Sometimes it's a little bit, sometimes it can be a pretty good bit. But I appreciate you taking the time to do that, because that helps me out a lot and it doesn't cost you anything extra. And with that said, I'm out. I'll talk to y'all later. Take care. Peace.